5 days after my husband's funeral, my son said I'd be dead before the will was read. 5 minutes into the will reading, he lost $88 million, and the only thing he could say was my name. Some families mourn in silence. Mine brought champagne. Just hours after the funeral, they were in my home, not to comfort, not to remember, but to measure the walls for their future spa and tag my furniture with neon stickers. I was told to sit somewhere out of the way while they divided my life like a yard sale. They thought I was powerless, a ghost in my own house. What they didn't know was that I'd been holding the one card that could burn their entire deck, and I had been waiting 15 years to play it. They gave me the laundry room, a cot, a flickering bulb, and the smell of bleach. My bedroom, our bedroom, was already stripped. My scarves, books, and photo frames were tossed into boxes labeled donation. I sat on the cot that night, pulled up the loose floorboard, and took out the worn leather folder I'd kept hidden since the year the company almost collapsed. Inside was the truth, a trust certificate with my name as co-founder, the bank memorandum showing I'd sold my heirloom jewelry to keep the business alive, and the original IPO proposal I'd written under a false name. That proposal was the blueprint that saved everything. The patent was in my name. They thought I built soup while he built an empire. They were standing on foundations I had poured by hand. I took the folder to Mr. Alden, our lawyer, though in truth he'd been mine long before they decided I didn't matter. He knew exactly what to do. The will reading was in a glass-walled law office, cold as ice. Joseph sat at the front, legs crossed like he owned the place, smirking at me. Mr. Alden pressed play on a silver recorder. My husband's voice rang out. If my son ever speaks ill of his mother, deduct $1 million per word. You know how many he owes? $88 million. Vanished before Joseph could blink. His pen rolled from his hand. Then came the next blow. All assets, copyrights, and the trust went to me. Mr. Alden then placed a framed certificate on the table, the patent for the IPO model, my name in bold. Inside was my husband's handwritten note. You built this with me. Now let the world know your name. They had 48 hours to leave my house. I walked each room, peeling off their neon stickers. This one's mine. Not anymore. I kept the blue one from the armchair, the yellow from the dresser, the green from our wedding photo frame, each one folded and dropped into the trash. The house felt different without their greed clinging to it. Months later, I sold it. Not out of anger, out of choice. I moved to a penthouse by the sea, the waves replacing their laughter. I started a fund for women who had been erased, women who had built in silence while someone else took the credit. They thought I was fading, but I had been thinking, waiting. And when my moment came, I didn't just speak, I rewrote the ending. The silence after Mr. Alden closed the folder was almost heavy enough to crush the room. My son's knuckles were white against the table edge, his wife's eyes darting around for an exit, my granddaughter frozen with her phone still in her hand. I didn't say a word. Silence works better when the truth is already spoken for you. When we left the office, Joseph caught my arm. "Mum, wait. Please," he said, the arrogance in his voice finally gone. I looked at him, the man who once clung to my skirt in thunderstorms, the boy I carried through fevered nights, and I remembered every word he'd spoken after the funeral. "Check her pulse at the will reading." My lips barely moved. "You spoke first, Joseph." The will simply answered. His grip loosened like he was holding something burning. Back at the house, the packing had already begun. The ones who had come in laughing and claiming were now quiet, dragging suitcases past the door. Catherine, my granddaughter, stood in the hallway with red eyes. So, we were living off you all along? She asked. I didn't answer. Some truths should sit with you like a stone in your pocket, heavy enough to remind you they exist. By the second day, the rooms were bare of their stickers, their perfume, their noise. I walked into the dining room one last time. The grand piano sat polished, untouched. On it, I placed my husband's letter, the one that ended with, "Now let the world know your name." It belonged there, in the heart of the house, even if I no longer did. 2 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new penthouse by the sea. No wobbly chairs, no neon stickers, no whispers behind doors. Just the hush of waves against the rocks. The patent royalties arrived like clockwork, but I didn't need the money. I needed the work. I started the Women Who Were Erased Fund, small scholarships, legal help, and recognition for women whose names had been hidden behind someone else's spotlight. The first scholarship letter went to a young engineer in Ohio whose male supervisor had taken credit for her design. When she read my note, she cried. I didn't need to hear her to know it. I had cried the same way once, alone in my kitchen, when someone finally told me I was right. One evening, as the sun slid into the ocean, I hung a wooden sign on my front door, carved from the oak tree my husband and I had planted decades ago. It read, "This home was funded by a burden. Enjoy the silence." Every time the mailman laughed at it, I smiled. They thought I was fading. I was waiting. And when the moment came, I didn't just take back what was mine. I made sure the world would never forget my name again.